We make way for Boomer Esiason, NFL Today on CBS, and, of course, WFAN Morning Drive co-host. Boomer, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dan. Great to talk to you again. And, I was comparing the situations. I was not comparing the athletes, just to be clear.
Okay.
I guess some people out there are taking what I said about Joe Burrow going to Cincinnati like LeBron going to Cleveland as if it were the same thing in terms of the athletes. But when you think geographically that Joe Burrow is about 2 hours outside of Cincinnati in Cincinnati Bengal fan country, and LeBron was from Akron, about an hour outside of Cleveland, going to Cavalier country. I think the situations are very similar, and especially that both will be the number one overall pick of their respective drafts.
Yeah, I only had that comment, and I was with the other people who were critical of it to say, wait, he's not the same as LeBron going to the Cleveland Cavaliers, but in context, then I understand what you're saying. But I just saw the quote there, and I was like, all right, well, Boomer's all in on Joe Burrow there, really all in on Burrow. Do you have what's your biggest question mark about Joe?
Well, first of all, I've been all in on Joe Burrow since he won the Heisman and came and visited us on the NFL Today. I presented him with a Bengal helmet and welcomed him to our dysfunctional family. So that was way back then. The only concern that I really do have of him is that he did leave Ohio State. He didn't stay there and battle it out with Dwayne Haskins. And, personally, I don't know the situation that unfolded there. I don't know what Urban Meyer and Ryan Day were saying to each of the quarterbacks. So I understand in this day and age, these players tend to go to that transfer portal as the moment they feel like they're not going to get a chance to do that. Us from the old guard couldn't do that. We had to fight all the way through. So that was the only knock that I had on him. But the fact that he was a point guard and he led his team, to the state playoffs, he was the all-state point guard for Ohio, tells me that, he's a great facilitator, that he's a great leader, that he understands the game, how important his position is. And, I do think he has the personality that Cincinnati desperately needs as a quarterback. And that's why I think he's going to really be a success there. And I think he and Zach Taylor should mesh well together. And, look, the Bengals spent a lot of money in free agency this offseason to try to prove to him that they're an organization that's in to win. So hopefully that will be the case, and hopefully he's changing some minds out there.
Would you listen to a trade offer if you were the Bengals?
I wouldn't. I think it's corporate suicide if they don't draft him. I mean, like I said, he's from Athens, Ohio, so he's 2 hours outside of Cincinnati to the east. A lot of his buddies that he grew up with are all Bengal fans. I mean, this is like the perfect situation. That's why it's a lot like LeBron to the Cavaliers. Anytime, or even like Patrick Ewing coming to the Knicks, back in, 1985. So I just think that there's a perfect fit here. And the Brown family is not stupid, I can tell you that. And Mike Brown has always valued a strong quarterback presence on the team. That's why me, Kenny Anderson, Carson Palmer, and Andy Dalton lasted as long as we did and got paid what we did to play for that franchise. So it's not a place for quarterbacks to go and die. It's a place for quarterbacks to go and flourish. And I think, given the fact that they gave the money to A.J. Green, that they're going to have their full offensive line back this year, and that they have Joe Mixon in the backfield. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to be Rookie of the Year, but he certainly will have a chance because I think he'll be the starter on day one.
We're talking to Boomer Esiason, NFL Today on CBS studio analyst, and, of course, Morning Drive co-host on WFAN. Is it more of a fear of taking Tua or a fear of passing on Tua, do you think, in the draft?
I think it's more a fear of taking him just simply because of the injury history. And then when you listen to guys like Mike Tannenbaum and Mike Lombardi just absolutely destroying Tua, you wonder if there's some sort of conspiracy thing going on between Nick Saban and Bill Belichick to get Tua up to New England, although I don't necessarily know that the Patriots have the draft capital to do it. He's left-handed, and I think it's Left-Handers Day here today on the Dan Patrick Show, as I have seen all your guests. So I'm rooting for the young man. I think he's a terrific young man. I've never seen a guy this accurate come out of college. I mean, that's the one thing that I do really love about him. The injury factor does concern me, but, that could happen to anybody. So look what happened to Drew Brees his last game in San Diego. He came back and has had a Hall of Fame career with New Orleans and Sean Payton. So hopefully he gets to the right place where he doesn't have to get thrust into playing right away, that he can actually have a few more months to protect that hip and then come hit the ground running in 2021.
I was also wondering about this, Boomer, where I've talked to Steve Young about it, this left-handed quarterback, and, these teams are built for a right-handed quarterback, but how much of a difference is it now in today's NFL if you have a left-handed or a right-handed quarterback?
I think it took a while for the receivers just to get used to me when I was playing. I remember Chris Collinsworth used to say there was like an 8 to 10 inch difference of where the ball comes out of the pocket. And, sometimes it gets a little wacky if you're not used to playing with it. But, these guys are so good, and Tua is so accurate. I don't really think it matters. The other thing about Tua, he throws what I consider and I describe as a very catchable ball. It almost like it floats right into the hands of the wide receivers. Now, a lot of the wide receivers there in Alabama were wide open, so we have to see him at the NFL game and at the NFL level to see if the ball does have enough jump on it. I think it does. I think he's got more than a strong enough arm, and I think that his accuracy, like I said, is really outstanding. So I give him 5 stars on accuracy. I'll give him 5 stars on his arm strength. The thing that I hold back is the injury aspect of it, and that's a big aspect, I think, for NFL talent evaluators.
I had Chris Fowler on yesterday, and I said, what was your reaction first time you met Joe Burrow? And he went, extremely confident. And I said, yeah, that's the first thing that jumps out when you meet him in person. And I said, well, what about Tua? He said, the ball comes off his hand differently, that he and Herb Street were talking about. It's just different. And I said, of all the quarterbacks, he said, I'm just telling you, it comes off his hand different. How do you explain that?
It's just natural. It's something that, it's like watching Kyler Murray. It's like watching Andrew Luck. Some of the great players that we've seen, come through these drafts. You know it when you see it, and I know exactly what they're talking about. And Tua's got a beautiful natural motion. There's nothing you have to change. And, the one thing I remember when I first got to the NFL, Bruce Coslett was my offensive coordinator in Cincinnati, and he used to yell at me all the time, get your elbow up, because when my elbow was down, I would end up sailing the football and throwing it over guys' heads. And he would work with me on my motion and everything else. I was trying to do everything all natural. So I had to fundamentally change the way that I would do things. I don't think you have to do any of that with this kid. This kid just was like born, came out of the crib throwing the football, and he just does it so naturally. And that's the beauty of it. And as far as the confidence is concerned with Joe Burrow, here's what I love about that. He's going to go to a team. There's a perception, obviously, around the Bengals, and we all get it. But I'm here to debunk that in some respects, because most of us quarterbacks that have gone there had pretty good careers, pretty good numbers. And I know Andy Dalton didn't win a playoff game, but, they went there. And Marvin Lewis was there for 16 years. So believe it or not, it's somewhat stable, and they do take care of their own, and they will pay their own guys. And what they need is a personality just like Joe Burrow to walk into that locker room when everybody knows that he is the leader. And that's what I believe will happen. And that's why I think it's a great fit for the Bengals.
I'll leave you with this, Boomer. Odell Beckham Jr., I know that there was rumor that maybe he's on the move to Minnesota, and I think subsequent reports have said that that's not true. But, with what happened with New York and you being in New York, like, where did things change for Odell Beckham? And do you think that he can get that back, that whatever he had?
Hey, Dan, I think he hated playing with Eli Manning. And I think that he made no bones about it. When he did the interview with ESPN and Lil Wayne right there, unable to say a nice thing about his quarterback, Eli Manning, who's revered here in New York, is that's the moment that it really, truly went downhill. He pulled the antics on the field, going to get the fluids before halftime even started, or, lifting his leg in Philadelphia like a dog on a pasture. So all those things kind of added up. But that one interview where he just could not say anything nice about Eli Manning, I think, was the end game for most of New York Giant fans here in New York. And, it's a combustible relationship when you think about the two personalities, Odell and Baker Mayfield. So there may be some truth to the discussion that he could be on the move again. But then again, I was saying to myself, I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to want to deal with that.
No, and Mike Zimmer. Yeah, Mike Zimmer's not going to want to deal. Why would you trade a headache to get a headache?
Yeah, that's why I find it hard to believe, but I understand with Stefanski coming from Minnesota, I can understand if there was a possible conversation. Yeah. I just don't see it happening.
The New York team that will make the playoffs first, the Jets or the Giants?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm going to say the Jets only because I think they're maybe in a better situation in their division right now than the Giants are. The Giants have an untested head coach. They haven't been able to get together. They'll have a second-year quarterback. I think offensively they're going to be pretty good, but I still think defensively they're probably a couple of years away from being what I would consider a playoff defensive team.
Buy stock in Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones?
You know what? I buy stock in Daniel Jones, and I buy heavily because I just think the kid showed more than I ever expected, and he looks like the real deal. Sam, I think, has gone through some tough growing pains with the mononucleosis and all that other stuff. But I also think he plays a little bit of he needs to refine his game is really what I'm saying. In the pocket, he looks a little nervous to me still, and I think that still bothers some of the accuracy issues that he has. So he's got to calm down. Hopefully this year will be a year that we'll start seeing that.
Boomer, great stuff as always. Glad you got a chance to clarify the Joe Burrow, LeBron James stuff. We appreciate your time as always.
All right, Dan. Good to talk to you. Take care.
Boomer Esiason, NFL Today on CBS.